quick. Now that I've started the stream, I'm wondering if I'm forgetting somebody that I was going to try and put in my deck. I guess we'll figure that out later. That is a large bishop. I feel like anyone with a bishop that large is going to immediately ban Idom, so probably a good thing to get rid of them. Oh, I was thinking of putting Shuri in. Hmm. Maybe I should have gotten rid of Nick. They did get rid of my Toad. We'll see how this goes. Hey, Royu. Yeah, trying to go a little bit earlier today, but also I just happened to, what's the word? Eat a late lunch today. Welcome, Danny, Bleezy, Bean. Hmm. Sense. Think I do this? I'm still definitely not super confident in this meta. Hey, Pablo. Bye. Welcome. Let's see. Alright. A little slower than normal. How'd we do? I think we win that. With Kushala, why did you have the Blessing of Justice trigger with just heavy attack and not a knockdown? I mean, I guess Question is, flip it around. Why put it on a knockdown? Ghost Rider doesn't get his aptitude on any knockdown. He gets it on a heavy attack. Sorry, Cosmic Ghost Rider. OG Ghost Rider doesn't get his regen on any knockdown. He gets it on a heavy attack. That's kind of the standard there. And in general, a lot of people's abilities trigger on heavy attack, not just on any knockdown. And Kushala has plenty of abilities on her specials, which are her other sources of knockdown, right? Did she need anything else? If you're lucky, Jackie. I think I could have played that differently. I think you want the vicious up, and I didn't do that. I think you also can time the heavies a little bit better to manipulate combo. That's a learning experience, but Cat's good. The other thing, Stig, is that like we don't just evaluate abilities in terms of is this too strong or not. The other thing is, does it make sense? And I think from a design standpoint, it doesn't make sense for Kashala to get something that improves her damage over time abilities on the same trigger with which she applies her damage over time abilities, right? Like that's kind of just a win more. If you're able to throw specials, which is how you get your incinerates, why should those specials also make incinerates better? That's generally something we would avoid. I'm kind of surprised that took that long. Hey, Dane, welcome. Hope you did as well. Yeah, I think so, Icarus. I think all that you have to look at for that is the fact that Ghost keeps going off and on the black and white list for war. Did I not hit the button? I guess I didn't. That's my bad. Thought I did. She's also a leading contender for Eternity of Pain type stuff when those come back on a pretty frequent basis. Ghost is cracked. I don't need to care about Hulk, right? Or Odin. Like, I might as well get rid of the Nick. And the Shuri and the Spot. Those are all ones I'm not running. Might as well. No, that's very fair, Chris. I wasn't trying to imply anything by that. She's just definitely still extremely good. You kind of have to accept that using her does mean she's going to be banned a certain amount of the time, and so if you feel like your resources are too precious for that, then don't. But when she's open, she's very, very good. Probably just an accident of like your connection speed or something, Pablo. I don't want to talk too much about it, but we are looking at that a little bit. Maybe that should have been done. Sure. Hey, Ray. Yeah, no, I know, Stig. I wasn't offended. I apologize if I came off that way. Not exactly. I don't want you to overstate what I just said, Pablo. Like don't go calling it a bug. It is an accident. But there is some like weirdness of inconsistencies that we are taking a look at. I kind of want to throw this round. No, I shouldn't have done that. I definitely shouldn't have done that. I mean, that is a throw. Yeah, that is a throw, and they have domino. I don't know. I appreciate the input, TCS, but Hulkling is not obvious because if if they then place Warlock the next round, I don't really have a good answer. Hey, Mom. That's not the kind of thing you come here for, Greg. I've been clear on that. Yeah, no surprises there. Maybe I should have used Guardian and just dealt with it? No, because I wouldn't have gained any power outside the specials. That's not enough. Maybe I should have burned Hulkling and taken my chances with Warlock, but I don't love that either. Yeah, I like this meta. I'm certainly not playing it perfectly, but I like it. Hey, Robert. Welcome. And hi to you, Ray. Although I'm not answering that question. Okay, I cannot get parries today. Round 3. Unfortunately, I have to pick first, which means I'm probably dealing with Warlock. I don't know if I can even do that. I almost feel like Sunspot's my best defender. But if I do that, they just place Carl. Yeah, I just lost this one. Black Cat should cook for you on defense. But if I place Black Cat, they place Hulkling. Maybe Icarus, unless you get a single shock on you. Because Sunspot falls apart when shocked. Hey, Lex. I know Sunspot can do Hulkling. Love it. Wait, they're placing first? Huh, I got lost. Perfect blocks once you have the incinerates up, yeah. Well, in that case, it has to be Hulkling on defense. All right. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. No, that's not what was said, Wayne. Please don't go spreading that. Thanks, Dave. That's good to hear. I banned Sunspot? Yeah, he's pretty gross. I've been playing Sunspot wrong. What were you doing? I mean, that's roughly how you play him in every meta, but in this meta in particular, sticking to the heavies, because charging heavy gives you power, right? Which gets around polka dot power, and the heavy itself applies incinerates, which then feed polka dot power. So he just synergizes really nicely with the tactic. Or meta, whatever. They were in the same position as me. They kind of were and kind of weren't. Because I think if they had placed. I guess, yeah, they didn't really have a good answer. I think Hulkling, or I think Carl on defense was their worst choice because it's the one that interfered with their attackers. Um, whereas the other two, they would have had some flexibility and just been disadvantaged. But they were definitely disadvantaged in round three. Yeah, magic is definitely overpowered. I do want to spend some time on this because if this is a new thing to you, then you probably don't understand just how overpowered. Magic and Quake are both overpowered for basically the same reason. Both of them, as long as something isn't specifically stopping their kit, do not let the opponent play the game. Um, and what I mean by that is that there's just a whole host of abilities, including anything that has to do with special attacks, that Quake completely bypasses. There's a whole host of abilities, including anything to do with special attacks, that Magic just bypasses. But on top of that, Magic also has very high damage. People are forgetting this because she's been locked as a 5-star for so long. If we had 6-star ascended rank 5 Magics right now, she would be one of the highest DPS mystics. Like, easily. Up there with Tigra. So when you combine the level of control she has with the level of damage she has, and then you add on top of it the fact that Limbo is an incredible sustain mechanic that allows her to actually heal from block damage, to heal from recoil itself. And you add in the fact that Power Lock is so much better than Enervate or Combat Power Rate Reduction, which a few people have brought up. And then you also add on top of that the fact that she synergizes absurdly well with power back boosts because she steals power and then also gains power from doing damage. And again, as a reminder, she has one of the highest damage outputs in her class. She's just too much. There's no way around her. You're not far off, Wayne, but the reason I pushed back is that you said with authority something that is not what they said. This is what I talk about a lot of other times is that the community is very tempted to play telephone with official communications where it's like you were 95% right, but that 5% wrong was enough that it would then get magnified by somebody else saying something and somebody else saying something. And before long, you're going to have people saying, well, no, Kabam confirmed that something completely different that we did not say. And so that's why I am so exact about this stuff, because it just gets away from itself. If I'm remembering correctly, what was said on the live stream was that yes, they are not releasable as they are. And that when we were looking at Ascension, we did consider the possibility of giving them light nerfs so that they would be releasable. And we chose not to. Personally, I think we should have. But I also understand why we didn't, because when that possibility was brought up in stream, those of you who were there saw chat explode into "Don't you dare, no touchy." So it is what it is. Limbo damage isn't much of a factor offensively, but she would also be a very strong defender. Yes. Thanks, Martin. I appreciate it. As far as I know, Chris, game still runs on the same 30 frames per second under the hood. I don't think anything was done to rock it. CD trigger. Does that make them go away? I didn't know. Yeah, forums are one of the worst places for people to turn things we did not say into fears. Yeah, I don't want to deal with that. It's a good roster. Probably safer to not deal with that. But that's always the. I'll get to that later, Amon. It's going to distract me if I dwell on it right now. Thanks so much for the super chat, Shibby. I appreciate you. Now, will it show up in the overlay? Not, I'm gonna have to go figure some things out. Alright. Emma is a bit of a problem. Venom is a gift if we can break her armor. I think that's what we should do. I think I have answers for the others. Hey, there we go. Blade is better than ever. And Diablo can do that. Sunspot is not who I would pick for a Sig 200 thing. You guys are so negative. What exactly are you talking about there, Icarus? Because Pablo and Slay are joking. Okay, come here. Who here is complaining, Icarus? I'm not following you. I'm not trying to be obtuse. I'm just confused. It's saying 1289. That's because the wait, that is weird. Because YouTube's chat revenue is clearly using a different exchange rate than Stream Elements. They're close, but they are different. That's kind of weird. No worries, Chris. All right, let me know when you get back, Aman, because I do want to address your question. Hey, Larson, how's it going? Hey, Snoops. Hey, Robbie. Welcome. Yeah, Pi is correct. Quake has been bugged forever. Protection is a hell of a drug. Tanky boy. All right. If you can't get the specials because of the node, you are in trouble. What node are you talking about, Chris? I'm guessing the Plagued Mind one? Okay, so backing up a little bit, there are a couple things in chat to discuss. So yeah, Pi is correct. Quake works even when the concussion is not there because she was just programmed wrong. She was bugged. She's always been bugged. She does not need the concussion on the opponent to evade. She's supposed to. It's very clearly what her kit says, but she's been bugged forever. And apparently, before I started working at Kabam, they were looking at fixing the bug, but didn't because of backlash, which is just so emblematic of problems in this game. But I'll come back to that in a sec because I do want Amon to be here for that. So let me read. Yeah, as far as Quake, like the concussion honestly needs to go. That's just one of the biggest problems. Because the way she currently works is she just turns off the entire fight at the beginning. And that's she turns off the entire fight at the beginning and gives the opponent no power. Giving the opponent no power as your playstyle is already so problematic that there is a chance that whatever first nerf we did for her wouldn't be enough. I'm going to be blunt. Um, but even keeping that in mind, even keeping a playstyle that has a real possibility of never giving the opponent any power at all, you need to not also be turning off all of their abilities more reliably than almost anyone else. The fact that she is built specifically around the most problematic non-damaging debuff in the game, on top of having a broken playstyle, that's her problem. Or that's like the icing on the cake, is what I should say. There's not much chance that the change would be more damage, Wayne, because you're not understanding, I think. Quake is too strong. We're not saying Quake has too much in one part of her kit and not enough in another. We're saying Quake is too strong. The response to that is not, we'll trade you this for this. The response to that is Quake needs to be less strong. There's no bargaining here. If we action on Quake, she will be worse. That's the goal. And so we're not going to be trading extra damage for. Need to get that expectation out of the way up front. Slay, sit in the corner and think about what you did. I don't really agree, Pablo. I'd rather just change her. I don't agree with that either, Wayne. I think she needs to be changed. But I'll come back to that in a minute because it ties into Amon's earlier comment. Yeah, we do consider the current reliability of Intimidate to be too low, but I do want to clarify it's never going to be 100%. The purpose of Intimidate is not to make sure the opponent does not ever throw specials. That's not what a bias is, that's called a lock. Sure thing, Shatterstar. Glad you're having fun. Yeah, I know, Slay. It's very important to him. When are the forums not epic, Wayne? I've become so numb to their complaining. Blade is very solid for specific opponents in this meta, yes. Because his boosted special 2s are pretty nuts. Yeah, Intimidate being guaranteed would be too strong. That's never happening. They got their wolf, and I didn't get mine. It's unfortunate. But we do have some good attackers here. Yeah, Sauron doesn't work this meta. His damaging effects are just too short. I think I missed the pop-up for Rick subscribing, but thank you. I appreciate it. Hey, Vega, welcome. Does Sauron work for any meta? Ouch. I think he can. Top 10 duds. That's so mean. Thanks, MSD. I appreciate it. Yeah. We got a crit. We got 2 crits even. Was unfortunate. I probably didn't need to spend nearly that long. That was good practice. Yeah, that's fine. I wasn't expecting to win that one. I think this is still worth it. We'll just see how good they are with Omega. It's possible I should have held on to Tigra. How'd we do? Good enough. Hmm. Sauron's good on defense. Gotcha. There are definitely ways to handle it, but that makes more sense to me. Um, Unduped Vox, unduped Null. Probably take Vox, but I don't think there's a wrong choice there. I do like Null quite a bit. Could Absorbing Man work in this meta via passive power gain? Yeah, I mean he can steal from opponents, yes, but there's also just Mystic Dispersion. He's not really going to be able to refine, which he needs to siphon power gain from the opponent without gaining power in the first place. So you basically have to be facing somebody with armor breaks. Um, and you need somebody who has armor breaks and passive power gain for you to steal, or you need them to have buffs to expire. And that's like a pretty narrow subset. I wouldn't want to use Carl this meta. Yeah, Black Widow's definitely incredible right now. Hey Lee, no worries. Made me work for that one. Is there a reason I was going for intercepts? Yes, it helps against future Ant-Man. The attack that intercepts cannot glance itself and also removes an armor up, so it helps keep him at 0. I appreciate the kind words, Lee. You definitely played well. Hey, Gnatch. Has anyone tried Void? So Void is not going to work for this meta on offense. This for the same reason that Decay didn't stop Void. his damage is not a passive, it is an uninteractable product of his debuffs. So he could work via like heal reversal, and he will be doing some damage, but he's not going to be able to gain power and take advantage of power shield. So it would be pretty miserable. Hey, Vel, thanks for stopping by. Okay, so let's go back to Amon's question. Yes, the community is worried that literally any touch-ups mean more changes to older characters. If I had my way, they would just have to get over it, which we'll come back to, because your original comment up above was like you understood that the Zemo thing had to change, but it wasn't what was advertised, right? I understand that, but the problem is that like this game evolves over time. We all know it does. As a matter of fact, that's even how people tell us to deal with champions, right? They say, like, oh, just design your way around Hercules. Leaving that aside, just trust me, it's not possible to design around him. He's too strong. Um, but, like, leaving that aside, even within that, there's this implicit understanding that the game is going to change, right? Like I've already seen people say, "Oh, well, there's going to be a tech with neuroshock immunity who isn't metal like within the next 2 months or something." Now, the thing is, don't bet on it. But also secondary, if we did that, that would be a reduction in Onslaught's value in a measurable way. Because if you want to say this is what was advertised, therefore that's what it needs to stay, well, Onslaught was advertised as having a defensive, damaging effect that no one is immune to. The minute someone is immune to it, he's no longer as advertised, right? And that's just as true as if we changed him and made it Rupture instead, right? The point I'm making here is that champions' values are going to go down over time. That is inevitable because we are going to create value in other places. That basic truth is why so many so many other games with depth like this um just have regular balance passes. Sure, they advertise X in games like Grim Dawn is in the same genre as like Diablo, for those of you who know that. They have very regular balance passes to the point where people will grind for specific kits, like loadouts of gear and combinations of stuff, and then they'll get nerfed. And people just accept that, they move on to the next character, right? They got something that, quote, was advertised. They sunk real time and money into it, and then it changed. That is standard for games like ours. But our community in particular has decided that the only acceptable way for characters to change in power over time is via the introduction of other characters that make them less valuable. But only if we do it at exactly the right rate so that people aren't too upset. Because if we do it too fast, well, that's just devaluing, and that's arbitrary, and you're clearly just trying to sell crystals. Wait till they hear how this game economy functions. Um, but the point is that I don't think that there is a like clear moral distinction that makes introducing new ability, like new characters, new game modes, new nodes that make a character less powerful, and just changing the character. Why is one okay and not the other? Why is it completely within our rights to add a lane to war that stops Nimrod in his tracks? but it's not within our rights to change Quake's concussion to a different debuff. I don't see a good answer to that question because I don't think that there is a reason why one is okay and one is not. I think you need both. And I think that we as a studio have tried really, really hard to make the game better without touching any champions in a negative way. And I think we have tried really, really hard via the rebalancing program to prove to you as the community that we do want you to have fun and we do want you to enjoy the characters you have. But I think that that should have also bought us enough goodwill. We should be allowed to make the call that things need to change about a few characters. I'm not saying Kabam has always had this goodwill. I'm not saying that we didn't need to earn it, right? I think that the Namor nerf wasn't necessary. I think the Torch buff was a mistake. I think parts of 12.0 weren't handled well. But I think that we have put in the work, and I think that we have proven to, as a studio, to you, the player base, that we would approach nerfs to Magic, to Quake, to Hercules with a certain amount of tact, and they would still be good coming out the other side, and the game would be healthier for it. And I think the entire rest of your rosters would therefore be more valuable than, quote, advertised than they are right now as a result of things being cleaner overall. I know not everyone's going to agree with me. That's totally fine, but that's where I sit with this. All right, now let me read chat. Hold on. Where's my emote for this? There we go. That's why he's a champ designer, not community manager. I'm imagining that's probably when I said get over it. And fair. Um, yeah, Omega Red did come after Korg, and Penny is definitely less valuable than she once was. For sure. I'm glad you enjoy it, Larson. And yeah, Danny, design is challenging. I love it. And I think it would be a bit less challenging if this community wasn't so entrenched in this particular viewpoint. But yeah, it's an interesting job. And you know I agree with you, Slay. Like, True Focus was a disaster because, sure, it stopped Quake from evading, but it also stopped Elsa and Mr. Negative and Mr. Fantastic and Spider Gwen and a whole bunch of really interesting stuff. Yeah, and I totally get it, Amon. Like, that's why everything you're saying about why people don't want changes is why it's not something to do lightly, right? I'm not suggesting that we just make fundamental changes to people's kits every few months for fun, right? But the same way that we've decided old characters need to get better, I think we also need the room to decide that some old characters do need to get worse. Like, if you think about it, the upcoming Luke Cage buff, which, yes, Shibby, that is me, if you're still here. But the upcoming Luke Cage buff is kind of a Sasquatch nerf. Because now there's another viable character with exhaustion. You'll see details when they come out, but he's keeping his exhaustion, and I do think he's viable. So I don't really think that I'm giving away the game there. This is the stuff that's really interesting. How do you guys? I appreciate that match. How do you guys decide on champion power, general metas, and introduce new counters and when? Um, it's a good question because these rules have kind of evolved for us over time, even since I've joined the company, and so I don't want to commit to any hard ones. We definitely try to wait a certain amount of time before we introduce new counters, and our current policy is that the first champion that, quote, counters a new defender shouldn't necessarily be a hard counter. Like, if I had released Absorbing Man and Terrax had come out the previous month, I that would have been a big misstep for me. I think I probably countered Terrax too hard, but it would have been much more egregious. I don't know why I almost said a different word. If he wasn't so old, right? Similarly, it's like you've seen a couple like Onslaught handles Atuma well, but he doesn't shut down everything Atuma does. Not really. He feels like a good enough counter for very skilled players, but he's not a hard counter, and that was intentional. Um, that's one example. I'm trying to think through this. There is a certain extent to which our plans for when counters come out are fluid depending on how potent the defenders end up being. Because if defenders are adequately countered by characters that are in the game, well, then we don't really need to waste time countering them further, right? In my opinion, that's how you end up with Penny Parkers. I don't think we needed to counter her as hard as we did because we had Venom and Venom Pool in the game already. And we had Scroll, right? That kind of thing. I don't think I would have trusted 2021 Kabam with targeted nerfs, but I would trust the current iteration. That means a lot to me, and that is definitely the point I'm trying to make. So I appreciate that. Entry Beast group would be happy to buff all of them. I mean, I think it goes without saying that, like, we want both, right? We want internally, we want more resources to update older characters. We enjoy that too. Um, but we also want the freedom to deal with some problems. Yeah, that should do it. Because yeah, you do still see people using Quake and Magic in Tier 1 War right now because they are that powerful that they, even as fragile and slow as they are, sometimes feel safer than newer characters at 7-star rank 2 or 6-star rank 5 ascended. That says a lot about how strong they are. Now, neither Magic nor Quake are good in Necropolis, but if you back up to last January, a year ago, and look at Eternity of Pain, how many people used their 5-star magics in their Eternity of Pain runs? I did. I got 3 solos with her as a 5-star before Ascension. They are very, very good. I'm still annoyed Iceman is Nova Flame immune because Iceman is more present this season, but that's value for Iceman. See? That's somebody who's now more valuable. That's what I mean. I think the addition of 7-star made any champs too strong. I think there are some champions in the pool that were a little bit above what the designers were aiming for, but I don't think that's a mistake, right? I think it would be a lot less scary if we had this control that we're talking about, right? Because I think their inclusion as 7 stars has shown that Juggernaut and Hulk are too strong with too low of a skill ask. That's something we should be able to adjust. Because they're only this strong because we adjusted them, right? This is not what was advertised. This is not what was released years ago when they came out. So I think we should have that freedom, but I know that the community doesn't currently think we do. Thanks, Swan. I really appreciate that. I guess to try and give a legitimate answer, I paid a lot of attention in English class. It was really important to me. I had really good English teachers, and I made a point of trying to communicate. Speaking to privilege a little bit, both of my parents are lawyers, and so I was surrounded by very advanced communication very early. Um, but yeah, pay attention in your language classes for sure. Reading a lot helps. And another big thing is that I've spent a lot of time teaching across my various professions. I think that really making an effort to teach something to somebody and not blaming them when they don't get it, but trying to find another way to explain it helps with your ability to communicate very, very quickly. Speaking of lawyers in advanced communication, how's it going, Clown? How's Torch being immune to his own Nova Flame coming along? I don't think anyone is interested in buffing Torch at the moment. I think that's how that's coming along. Thanks, Jay. I think it's hard to know right away, Jay. It's hard to know just by looking at them, especially if you're not a champ designer, which characters actually can be value only updates and which characters need more. I also think that there's a certain amount of some characters are older than the class wheel, and so making them serviceable with their current kits is something that we have to be careful to do. Cyclops is a very good example. If we just dialed up his damage and made Cyclops amazing as he currently is, well, now you have a mutant with competitive armor break. And it's like, okay, well, how many more techs do we have to now release with resistance to armor break so that Cyclops doesn't just demolish them? Okay, well, how do we do that to make sure that Cosmic still has like it gets dangerous quickly. There are ways around it, so please don't anyone put in the chat, "Oh, we'll just make them immune to armor break from mutants." Like, yes, I know, but it adds more immediately. And so that's something that we have to contend with older champions as well when updating them. What are my thoughts on Hulk Stunlock? I think it's still a bit too good, but I don't really think that's the problem with him. I think the problem with Hulk is the damage is just too high. The Stunlock would be more reasonable if he didn't kill people as quickly during it. And focusing on the Stunlock would not be enough to fix him. You have to touch the damage, or the special 3 is still insane. Yeah, Hulk and Juggernaut are not Hercules. They are too good. I appreciate that, Alan. Sim and I are friends. We're in the same battle group and we chat fairly regularly. So that's cool to hear. That's also neat to hear, Chris. How does Kabam get around this? At some point, we kind of just need to do it, right? Like, I think most of us in this chat have seen the forum posts of people complaining that they got banned because they spent so much money and they should be allowed to cheat. We still banned them. I think it's kind of a similar thing. I'm not saying we should ban people who complain about nerfs, but at a certain point, you do have to push past some negative feedback. That's inevitable. The question is where you draw the line, and I personally think this is annoying enough to push past a bit more. That's super fair, Amon. Yeah, I totally get it. I took enough Spanish in high school that I did have to actually write essays in it and portray, like, and try and get my thoughts across in a second language. And I wasn't miserable at it, but I certainly was not what I am in English. So you have my sympathies, and I and my admiration for communicating regularly in a language that was not your first. What do I think of Unduped Sandman? I think he's solid. He's not going to be fast enough for Battlegrounds Unduped, but he still has incredible access to Petrify and Decelerate and triple immunities. Yeah, for sure, Wayne. It's not possible for us to see everything ahead of time. We try and catch as much as we can. Welcome, Kaitu. What was the buff to Torch? Most of it was making it easier for him to maintain temperature, if I recall. It's been a while. I think that might have been all of it, but it definitely, like, the buff to Torch is why he works so well in Battlegrounds against skill defenders. He used to be more just against Mystics and Energy. Okay, I guess we get to move on for free. I apologize, Wally. May you have better luck with your next matchmaking. Yeah, his Sig is super important MSD. I just still think he has enough utility that it's not a bad pull, is what my point was. Yeah, Nimrod is one where it's like I think with Nimrod there are two separate questions. There's is he overtuned and did he eat up too much design space? I'm not sure if he's actually overtuned, although he is absurdly quick against mutants, but he definitely ate up too much design space. I think if nothing else, he should not have gotten his abilities to control both regen and prowess as strongly as he did, because that was all of mutants' threats. It's too much, especially not on basics. If he was able to do both in specials, maybe. I don't know. Plenty of things we could have done there. It wasn't caught. Do I think it's fair they lock Sandman's damage behind his awakening after the buff? It's not all of his damage. He still gets like he still ramps without it, right? It's just his ceiling. And yeah, I do think it's fair to lock a ceiling behind a Sig ability. That's kind of what I do with my characters. Oh, you know what? I think we're pretty much wrapping up the stream. But I have been sitting on a 7-star crystal for a while, so let's do that. Hey, Thanos. Is Rintra overtuned? Yeah. If nothing else, Rintra should probably have less health. Okay. Spot would have been cool. I like Joe, but a first dupe on Wiccan is very good. That gives him the block unblockable against Cosmics. And the shocks into degens, and what, the chance for them to not be consumed when making plasma. That's a great pull. Yep. Very happy about that. Yeah, I think so. Here's the thing: Scorpion is overtuned because of his synergies. Scorpion synergies are way too freaking good. Um, as far as him himself, I think I think Scorpion is not necessarily overtuned as much as I think he is incorrectly tuned. I think Scorpion was not intended to be as good as he is doing parry medium medium special 2. Scorpion was intended to have you heavy cancel into specials. Scorpion was intended to have the special 1 be a more viable way to stack debuffs that then you would go to the special 2 for, right? I mean but that's the thing, Amon, is that's my point. Is Scorpion's rotations are hard to pull off, except that you don't have to do them. In Battlegrounds and in War, you never bother with his actual rotations. You don't do any of the fancy stuff from YouTube. You just do parry medium medium special 2. And that is more damage than you would have gotten from going for his rotation. And so I'm not saying that Scorpion ceiling, if I'm not saying that we're going to touch Scorpion, but I think that it is a miss in design that the medium medium special 2 is so viable. I think what Scorpion was intended to look like was someone who still killed that efficiently, but with more skill expression. Because that's why he's so good, is that it was like, well, because of the skill expression. Exactly what Amon just said. But I don't think he actually has it. And I'm not sure that that would be changed. I do think at some point we need to touch his synergies. They're too strong. Um, but I'm not sure that we need to actually do anything to Scorpion himself, because that's the kind of work that should be done in the design phase, and it's a little bit late for it. So that's more just me talking as a designer than speculating on changes I think we should make, to clarify. Anywho, did I have a 6-star relic? Was that what that was? No, no, I did not. I was just seeing my 5 stars. Okay, well, I think I'm gonna go ahead and call the stream here. But I really appreciate y'all hanging out. I always have my viewer count up, and it warms me heart when we veer away from gameplay into discussion and y'all stick around. So I appreciate y'all. I don't know if I'm going to be streaming tomorrow. I'm going to have a war to plan and then some family stuff. But if I don't, then an early Happy New Year to everyone. Hope you have a great time, and I'll see you soon. Take care, everyone.